People have said I speak slower lately. Well, I have to, because I need more time to breathe. It's difficult to breathe through a mask. Surprising, isn't it? From breathing freely, and then one day we all have to cover our noses. We can't go places as we please anymore either. Can't even go see or hang out with people like we used to. Everything has changed. It was totally unexpected. Nobody would have thought that this would be how our life would have turned out. With the virus variants continuing to show up, it doesn't seem it'll end anytime soon either. So, protecting ourselves is still critical. We all have the responsibility for ourselves, but also our families and the public. If we cannot accept this new way of life, we'll only feel distressed. Only by staying level-headed, then this distress can't harm us. Breathing through a mask is better than not breathing at all. We must learn to live with this reality, to live with it intellectually, and then we won't suffer. We have the Dhamma as our friend while in our confinement. Learning how to practice the Dhamma correctly and taking advantage of this downtime to meditate regularly. Many are worried, and that's understandable. People are struggling to survive and trying to pull through. With the knowledge of the Dhamma, we can see these hardships as phenomena. Though we're struggling, mindfulness and insights help calm and collect our mind while we contemplate possible solutions. There are always going to be problems, and we can't just chase them away. But if we can accept the fact that problems exist, we can choose to live with them astutely and carefully guide our lives through these tribulations. How long can COVID last? Well, it might not be over today or tomorrow, and it may last for quite a while. But if we can't accept this, we'll only suffer the entire time. Accepting how things are, we won't suffer as much. Spend this time meditating. There are only two things to practice: concentration meditation and mindfulness meditation. Let's take a look at why we do concentration meditation. Concentration meditation helps the mind to be stable within our body and mind. It gives the mind strength. The way to do this is to coax the mind to be with a single object. The mind is drained because it goes off to do too many things. The mind goes off to see, to smell, to taste, to feel physical sensation, or to think. And all of these tasks undoubtedly deplete our mental energy. In order to recharge the mind, we keep it from running all over the place. Use a meditation object that we like, be it chanting Buddho, or using the breath if we like. It can even be a combination like breathing in Bud and breathing out Do. We can also use physical movement, being conscious of our body moving, or being still, and so forth. Pick whatever technique that our mind is happy to do and keep at it. I also guide each monk here differently. Some of them observe the body, being mindful of the body movement. Some contemplate bones, which is just another technique to observing the body. Each person has their own technique, their own path. Bringing the mind to stay with a single object continuously allows the mind to rest, thus regaining its strength. If the mind runs around through the eyes, the ears, the nose, and the body all the time, it only exhausts its energy. Staying with a single object, the mind can regain its strength. With sufficient mental strength, we can then proceed to further develop our mind. It's critical that we develop a stable mind. A peaceful mind may be better than a scattered mind, but a stable mind is on a different level. At its most fundamental, a stable mind is the mind with correct concentration. It's when the mind separates itself from phenomena and it's in the state of impartial knower or observer state. Observer of what, though? For example, when we breathe in and chant Bud and breathe out with Do, what we see is the body breathing. A stable mind helps us see it's the body that's breathing. It's an object being observed, while the mind is one of observing. Achieving this, we can make further progress from being a peaceful, idle mind and elevate it to wisdom cultivation.
The primary stage of wisdom cultivation is to separate the 5 khandhas or aggregates. First, we need to have a stable observer mind that is aware, awakened, and joyful. This can be achieved in 2 ways. The first is through jhana. If jhana is impossible, then the second path is to use mindfulness to be aware of our mental activities, such as when the mind goes off to see, to hear, or to think. With such awareness, the mind cannot stealthily run off to do other things. The mind will then stay conscious with our body and mind. Like if we're aware that the mind is thinking, then that thinking mind will drop off, being replaced by the knowing mind automatically. While tapping our hand, we might feel relaxed and serene, while our mind wanders off. However, by focusing on our hand unwaveringly, we achieve the first type of meditation. That's because the mind doesn't run around restlessly. It only stays with a singular object, resulting in tranquility and a recharge. On the other hand, if the mind goes off to think while tapping, or becomes immersed and focused at the hand, and we are aware that the mind has, in fact, wandered off, or is over-focusing, the observer mind will arise automatically. So, the key natures as an observer are being aware, not unconsciously wandering off or getting lost in thoughts and forgetting ourselves, and not over-focusing. Those who have been studying with me since Suan Po have heard constantly about the mental state where the mind doesn't wander off nor over-focus. Many people laughed at it at the time. Many practitioners even said that what I taught was unorthodox, questioning why I didn't teach chanting Bud Do. That's because chanting Bud Do repeatedly leads to the first type of meditation. Being mindful of when the mind wanders off or over-focuses, we achieve concentration conducive to a stable mind. Separating aggregates is possible only in this mental state. For example, our body moves and the mind immerses into the body. We'll see that it's us that's moving. With a stable mind, however, we'll see that the body is one thing, the mind that's seeing the body is another. This is what separating the aggregates truly is. The Venerable Luangta Mahabua said that if you can't separate the aggregates, don't even boast that you're developing wisdom. He knew this from his own practice experience, which perfectly coincides with the scripture. In the scripture, the primary level of wisdom is called the knowledge of delimitation of the mentality materiality. It's the ability to separate mental aspects from physical aspects. For example, the body is moving while the mind is the observer. When we can distinguish them, we are then able to see the truth. We'll see that the body that's moving is impermanent, distressed, and non-self. It's only an object and not a self. Even the mind that's observing the body is also impermanent, distressed, and not in our control, and is not self either. So, if we are tapping our hand and are in the right state of mind, attaining the stream entry is not too difficult. That's because we can see that there isn't a self anywhere, neither mentality nor materiality. But before we reach this insight, it requires seeing this truth time and again. It also depends on our faculties. If our intuition or intellect is high, after seeing this a few times, the mind can reach the understanding that this body or this mind isn't a self. From the tapping of our hand, how can we see that the body isn't a self? It's not that mind-boggling, is it? The body that's moving is an object. It's under observation. There's nothing remotely telling us that it's a self. Now, how about seeing that the mind isn't a self while tapping? While tapping our hand, the mind sometimes goes off to think about something, or moves to focus on the hand, or it can become awake, aware, and joyful. If we know when the mind wanders off to think, the knower mind will arise. If the mind becomes immersed in the moving hand, becomes focused on the hand, and we are aware that it does, that immersive mind will disappear and raise the stable knower's mind.
Observe the mind just like that throughout the day. Sometimes the mind will either be lost in thought, become absent-minded, or overfocus on something, or be the knower. Basically, there are three mental states that we'll see: wandering, overfocusing, or awareness, and we have no control over this. It's impossible to be aware all the time. As for the wandering mind, that's the normal state for everybody. It's a bit different for practitioners though. When our mind wanders off, we become aware of that. At some point, we come to know that we cannot even order the mind to wander off. It's just impossible. Similarly, if the mind is to be aware, then it will be on its own. If the mind wants to think, it will think. If it wants to wander off, it will wander. If the mind wants to immerse itself in something, well, actually, this is one we can purposely do. Even though we can intentionally focus or suppress the mind, we risk forming the wrong view. We risk believing that the mind is the self, for it's under our control. When the mind goes off to think, and we are aware of it, we see that we cannot stop it from going off to think, and we are aware of it, then the knowing mind will arise. We can't sustain this knowing mind either unless we beam our focus on it. Doing this, however, we risk getting too absorbed in concentration. It's very likely we will form the wrong view that the mind is permanent and under our control, which is the opposite of the Buddha's teaching. Even the mind itself is impermanent. Per the Buddha's teaching, the mind rises and falls in succession all the time. If we happen to see our mind so still or sustain a state day in and day out, know that we are doing something wrong. In fact, I also made this mistake before. My mind dwelled in the vast empty void. In that void, there was happiness, peacefulness, equanimity. It was very comfortable. There wasn't any disturbance of defilement.
I was stuck like that for a year before I began to wonder. The Buddha said that the mind was impermanent. Why was my mind permanent? It hardly changed state, always the knower and that empty but luminous space. The Buddha said that the mind was subjected to suffering, yet my mind wasn't suffering at all. There was only happiness. Then there's also the fact that the mind isn't under our control, but I could. I then realized that what I was having or doing wasn't in line with the Buddha's teaching. I never thought that the Buddha was wrong or the Buddha's Tripitaka was incorrect. I immediately deduced that I was meditating incorrectly. If we meditate incorrectly, we'll only accumulate the wrong view. There are many such examples of hermits or Brahmas whose practices involve over-focusing and holding the wrong view. Some Brahmas have longevity. They even witness the births and destruction of universes. That's a long time to live, and they question why they don't age or die, and their only conclusion is because they are immortal. That's a wrong view. In fact, a large number of those who have the wrong view are from those who enter jhana and cannot discern what's going on. In a jhana state, the mind of some people may disappear and they enter the mindless Brahma's state. The moment their mind arises again, they cannot recall any mental activity before disappearing. They can only remember the moment when the mind arose out of nowhere and they simply manifested in a sudden way. They believe they are a self-existence, a self-incarnation life form. Consequently, they think they are the origins of the universes and everything that exists. They believe that everything comes into existence by itself, not from a cause. This is another form of wrong view. The wrong view is basically perpetuated by those who get too immersed in various types of concentration. We must be observant, ensuring that the mind is in the state of stable observer or knower. Then we can see that even the stable mind wanders off one moment and over-focuses in another. If it's over-focused, then we know so. If we don't, the mind may get stuck in concentration and form the wrong view. Staying at home lessens our interaction with people. With more time to ourselves, let's spend it practicing meditation. If we don't know what to do, at least say a chant continuously, not a long prayer. Chanting Buddho, Dhammo, Sangho is already good enough. Coax the mind to gain peacefulness by staying with a single object, then observe it. We'll see that it'll be peaceful for one moment and wander off in another. After observing this pattern for a while, the mind becomes stable. Once the mind is stable, the next step is to cultivate wisdom. In this stage, we'll see a pair of phenomena that always happen together. They are the mind that is the knower or observer and the object that is being observed. The mind and the object always make a relative pair. The mind is the observer or the subject, if you will, and the object here is terminology for a thing that's being seen or observed. This object is not necessarily emotions such as love, anger, or lust. The term includes fundamentally every formation that can be known. We will be able to see that the mind arises together with a formation and disappears together. Keep observing this, and we'll see that a happy mind arises and falls off, and so does a distressed mind. It's also the same for the wholesome and unwholesome mind. Every single mind arises and falls off. Keep observing this, and eventually wisdom will consummate. We'll come to understand that all things that arise will disappear. The wisdom pertaining to understanding the normalcy of the rise and fall of things is the wisdom attained by a stream enterer, but don't sensationalize the stream enterer as some superhuman. In the time of the Buddha, people didn't think too much. Why? Because everything was so new to them.
Consequently, life broke straight through into their heart, eliminating some defilements along its way even, and showing them that there truly wasn't anything as self. There is a story of a daughter of a weaver. On her way to give the yarn to her father, she walked past the temple where there was a mass of people who were awaiting the Buddha's Dhamma teaching. Since she still had enough time, she decided to join, and actually did attain profound Dhamma and enlightenment. In fact, the Buddha was waiting for her to arrive. Even when the Venerable Ananda reminded the Buddha of the time, the Buddha refused to start, saying that everybody hadn't arrived just yet. Only when she arrived and rested sufficiently that he started his teaching. After the teaching, the Buddha asked the young lady where she was from, to which the girl answered she didn't know. Where was she going, he asked, and again the girl answered she didn't know. Hearing her answers, the villagers became angered, thinking the girl was disrespectful towards the Buddha. They thought the girl was trying to make a fool of the Buddha by evading his questions. How could she possibly not know where she was from, or going to, or what she was doing? In fact, she actually couldn't. Since there wasn't a self, since she didn't exist, how could she tell? She didn't know where she was from, let alone her past life. She was being honest. When the Buddha asked where she was from, she didn't know. She didn't know what her past life was, nor what might be her next. Listening to the Buddha's teaching, she attained enlightenment and became a stream enterer. It was also similar to Anathapindika and Visakha, who achieved enlightenment easily. Some people even attain stream entry only from hearing others praising the Buddha. They didn't even hear about mentality and materiality or know about insight meditation. That's because the teaching was so fresh, so new to them. Our minds, on the other hand, have become a bit like a drug-resistant virus. Here in Thailand, we have heard Dhamma ever since we were born. We've heard teachings from other monks or others, so much so that our mind becomes so accustomed and resistant to the so-called medicine. We must have patience then. Since our disease is too stubborn to be cured, we'll have a longer treatment period. Keep on meditating until one day, when the mind collects enough resources, it will reach the revelation and attain fruition of enlightenment. As practitioners, we've heard time and again that the corporal reality is impermanent, and so are the feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. There is also the corporal reality that is non-self, and so are feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. In the Buddha's days, however, people had never heard of Dhamma before. Although there were some who didn't, many actually enlightened upon hearing it. We, on the other hand, have heard this numerous times, especially those who ordained before. There is a section in the morning prayer that contains this Dhamma piece, but hearing it too often, it becomes bland. The mind becomes jaded with Dhamma, too insensitive to absorb the Dhamma. It's the same as when a disease becomes resistant to its cure. What should be a quick cure, having successfully killed the disease before, now becomes ineffective. For such resistance, the longer and stronger medication is required as a result. Strong medicine may be necessary to some, but not all. To some, their teacher may only tell them to chant Buddho, and they just oblige without much thought. If they keep at it, the mind becomes mindful, awake, and joyful, and proceeds onto observing the nature of the aggregates, seeing that none of them is the self. Their path is simple, but that's not the case for others, especially when the mind is too brash. There are some austerity practices to help counteract the defilements, such as eating only enough to receive the necessary nutrients, or not indulging in sitting or sleeping, etc. I've heard from some masters about people investing heavily in walking meditation. Luang Prabhu told me about a monk who painstakingly did walking meditation until the soles of his feet cracked open, prohibiting him from walking. He continued moving by being on his hands and knees until they broke as well. In the end, unable to stand up and having to be on his back, he flipped from side to side, considering this as walking. All his efforts became fruitful, however. A strong treatment for a stubborn disease indeed. Some masters use the technique of no sleeping or limiting their food intake, which requires a good understanding of their body. I met a master residing in the northeastern area of Thailand. He said he was good at fasting, but couldn't handle not sleeping. Luang Pu Fun could stay up, but without eating enough, he couldn't meditate well, and his mind would be restless. To each their own. A master told me once that he could go on for days without eating, his mind was bright, and he could meditate very well. On the contrary, without enough sleep, his head would be hazy, from which he needed 3 days to recover, or else he may have a hazy, blurry mind. These masters used strong medicine, but we need to assess for ourselves. Some people who listen at home get so comfortable they don't even sit up while listening to the teaching. I've even gotten a letter confessing of such a thing. In the past, we were told not to lie down when listening to Dhamma, or else we'd reincarnate as a python. Whether that's true or not, they tell us not to lie down while listening. It only makes the mind weaker. Get up while listening to the teachers. If they actually see us lying down, they can't teach. That's an ecclesiastical offense. A monk sitting cannot give a sermon to an unill person who is lying down. Also, a monk, while standing, cannot give a sermon to an unill person who is sitting. There are a lot of restrictions. Rouse ourselves up while listening to the Dhamma. Don't be a laggard. Get up and sit upright. Starting off as a slouch, how are you going to make any progress? Don't be slothful while at home. We have to fight our own defilements. However, make it your goal to learn about yourself instead of to attain enlightenment. If enlightenment is the goal, we won't reach it because it's driven by greed. Our aim is to learn about ourselves, to see our body that is breathing while the mind is the observer, see when the body is standing, walking, sitting, lying down with the mind as the observer. Even when the mind is happy or sad, there's also a mind that's observing this. Or when the mind is craving, angry, or wandering, there's also an observing mind. Keep observing like this, and eventually we'll see that both this body and the mind are the congregations of impermanence, suffering, and non-self. Practice like this every day, and one day our effort will come to fruition. It won't just drop from the sky. Everything is from our own doing. If we do good deeds, be disciplined in our Dhamma practice, and do it correctly. Well, actually, practicing Dhamma correctly must come before being diligent in our practice. If we do it incorrectly and are diligent about doing it, that's going to make a mess. A person who studied with another teacher, but not in the forest monk branch, told me once that he asked his teacher what to do with his scattered mind. His teacher told him not to overthink things. Just keep making a mental note to whatever is arising. If there's a bright light, then mentally tell yourself, seeing, seeing. This guy asked me what he should do, so I told him to just know. His teacher was correct in telling him to just know. Whatever the phenomena is presenting, just know so. If his teacher had told him to correct this or alter that, then that's wrong. Just know whatever is happening in the moment. With constant practice, we'll learn the truth. Keep observing, and the truth will present itself, and only then can we let go. We break free from suffering by letting go of attachments. If we cannot, then we continue to suffer. That's a fair deal. Nobody can help us. It's something we must learn ourselves. Learn about ourselves by ourselves. Once we truly understand ourself, we'll see that there isn't truly that self. This body isn't ourself. It belongs to the world. There also isn't a self in the mind. The mind is only a natural element which perceives feelings. It arises from a cause and falls away once said cause is gone. It's beyond our control. The same is true with the body. What are the causes of the mind? If it's the eyes, then it's a dependent process of the sensory system at the eye. An object, the light, and the awareness that once contact is made creates a sight perception. When sight is perceived, consciousness comes to be and gives rise to feeling, memory, and karmic formation. The entire process is the response to the rule of cause and effect. It's the same for the mind. When the eye sees an object, a mind arises. When the ears hear a sound, a mind arises. When the nose smells a fragrance, the tongue tastes a flavor, the body feels a sensation, or mind pops up in the mind, a mind arises accordingly. That is to say that the mind itself is a volitional formation. It's a phenomenon caused by things. Things that are arisen from causes subside when said causes disappear. Consequently, the mind also rises and falls in successions, reflecting that there isn't a permanent self ever existing. Keep on practicing Dhamma, continue to see, and gradually, when the truth becomes more apparent, we'll feel dispassionate of this body and mind. There is nothing good or precious worth keeping close to our heart anymore. There's only suffering, impermanence, and non-self, and never truly belongs to us. Seeing such truth, we become dispassionate and detached. When the mind no longer attaches, the mind is liberated from all the innate defilements that we've been fermenting for so long. Worst of it all is ignorance, the false understanding of the body and mind, that this body and mind are us and belong to us, obscuring from us the fact that they are in truth suffering and not us. If we can truly see that they, in and of themselves, are suffering, then there won't be any desire to protect them from oppressions. There is also no interest for them to become happy, hence no more craving. Seeing the truth of the body and mind eliminates the ignorance and thus the craving. Clearly understand suffering, then samudaya or craving will disappear in the very moment when the understanding consummates. When the craving is eradicated, nibbana, or the cessation of suffering, is attained, and enlightenment manifests in the moment. In short, understanding suffering, eradicating the cause of suffering, reaching the cessation of suffering, and attaining enlightenment all occur in the same moment. To reach such a state, foundations are essential. If the mind is too weak, then do concentration meditation. When the mind gains enough energy, train it to be the stable observer by being aware of the unstable mind. Know when it wanders off to think, daydream, or over-focus on something. Also, know when the mind fabricates a mental state and basks in it. This is a mistake where a lot of avid practitioners get stuck. There was a time when Lumpu Dun was still alive. We'd come to learn that when with him we mustn't say anything, because it'd mean no Dhamma from him. He would just let us talk. Some people actually preached Dhamma to him for hours on end, and he'd just sit there quietly. Instead of benefiting from his Dhamma, they wasted time spouting nonsense or citing Dhamma to him. My preceptor once told me that when Lumpu Dun was in the hospital, a monk visited him, and to comfort him, the monk told him, "Don't feel despaired. The body is just like this. Sometimes it's suffering, but other times it's happy. Don't be attached to anything. Happiness comes when there's no attachment." Normally, Lumpu's face was always stoic, but he actually laughed out loud that day. His laugh was so joyful. Who knows? Perhaps it was from listening to Dhamma. Even we are all smiley, aren't we, hearing about this monk teaching Lumpu Dhamma? Anyhow, the day after I visited him, after some silence he spent contemplating Dhamma, he said, "I've been pondering this. I see that a majority of practitioners end up being big ghosts. Big ghosts are actually Brahmas, or those whose minds create intricate mental realms and cannot get out of or get past them.
It's an important pointer for us to be careful and notice if our mind gets stuck in a state of some sort. If the mind is idle, still, and indifferent for a period of time, that means we are stuck in a mental state. Be observant and you'll see. Most practitioners tend to create an illusionary state which is very still, placid, quiet, serene, and content. If we create this state, we get stuck in it. If we're stuck for some time, we need to be more aware, because if we aren't, we might get stuck here forever, and it will be a long time. It might be only one incarnation that some get stuck like that, but one incarnation may last for 10,000 eons. That's a long lifetime as a Brahma. So when we meditate at home, we must be observant. Being far from the teachers or the good company of a more experienced practitioner, we must use our own systematic attention as guidance. We have to be vigilant whether everything is in accordance with the Buddha's teaching or the guidance of the teachers. For instance, if the mind is too still or stuck in an empty, inactive state, immediately know that there's a mistake somewhere and carefully find what it is. If you can't figure out the cause, but can enter a jhana state, then do so. When the mind retreats from jhana and starts thinking about meditating, the mind will, as is habit, create that problematic mental state immediately. What if we can't achieve jhana? Then go to sleep. When we wake up and start thinking about meditating, our mind will also immediately create that practitioner's mental state. Be attentive of this moment, whether we're retreating from jhana absorption or waking up. This is the golden moment for our meditation. This particular moment exhibits whatever fabrication we're stuck in. As soon as the mind starts thinking about meditating, it immediately creates this particular practitioner state. When we sleep, we forget about this state. Similar to when we immerse in jhana, when we abandon everything else. The moment we retreat out of jhana, or when the mind emerges from subliminal consciousness, the mind is in its purest, most natural and ordinary nature. The moment we start thinking about meditation, the mind starts fabricating. The image of a meditation practitioner is serious, stern, still, or whatnot, and our mind must not be like this or that. So many do's and don'ts, it's no wonder the mind is too stressed. And without someone pointing that out, we'd probably be stuck like that forever and reborn in the realm designed especially for such mental conditions. So, while at home, we must be attentive. If at any point our mind is permanent, happy, and we can control or manipulate it, know that something is wrong. Try to observe where it's gone off the path. If we cannot, try observing the moment we wake up. When we start thinking about meditation is when the mind immediately creates that practitioner state we usually get stuck in. When we're able to see this process, we will no longer get stuck and can pass through this hassle. Practice like this every day, and mindfulness will become stronger, and the scattered mind will become more collected. The mind will also be able to see the separation of aggregates and the three characteristics of the materiality and mentality more clearly. If our mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom development are better, then we're on the right path. Then what? Continue doing it more. Now that we're on the right path, keep doing it regularly. Sometimes our mind might fall into concentration by itself. Visions might appear, but do not pay attention to them. If we follow the visions, the mind will move off base. If we're meditating and suddenly an angel manifests in front of us and offers us flowers and congratulates us so joyously that it shakes the realms, just know that the defilement is tricking us. It's giving us a show. Keep your wits about you. There's a lot who can't make it in their meditation because they're stuck in these illusions. This happens because of a lack of concentration. There are also those who get stuck in what's called distractions of insights, or things like empty space and keen knowledge. They're all things that the mind can grasp hold of and get stuck on. So observe ourselves and find out what we may be stuck on. Be attentive and we'll be able to pull ourselves out. Meditate every day. Perhaps one day our mind may become concentrated inside while still conscious of its mental activities. And the moment we retreat from such a state, we might think we've achieved the fruition of stream entry, or a once returning, or even a non-returning. Some people are silly. They'll actually doze off. The first loss of consciousness, stream entry. The second loss, once returning. So after the fourth doze off, now they're an arahant. So how can we check whether we've actually achieved enlightenment then? The key is our defilements. But before assessing our defilements, see first whether our mind is still absorbed in concentration. This is a crucial point. If the mind is still immersed in concentration absorption, the defilements will not be clearly apparent. Only the mind in its natural and ordinary state can see the defilements truthfully. This natural mental state is like that of the non-practitioner. All in all, if we experience something out of the ordinary, don't get too excited just yet. If we wonder what it is, just be aware of the curious feeling. And if we're so certain that this must be an enlightenment for sure, just don't be. Patiently observe for some time and see whether defilements can still arise. If it's truly a fruition of stream entry, there won't even be a shadow of self left. It's like there's no longer a shadow or lingering sense of self existing. This feeling completely disappears for the true stream enterer and will never reappear. If we can still feel it, then we're not a stream. However, if the mind is stuck and still, it prohibits us from seeing that self. A monk once came to tell me he already attained Dhamma. He went to study somewhere and they told him as such, which he totally believed and tried to hold on to that mental state. I asked him whether he saw his self, to which he said he no longer had it. Instead of saying not seeing it, he said not having it. Of course he wasn't, if his mind was in that state, and I had told him exactly that. I further asked him if he wasn't in that state, did he think he would see it? He got angry with me and has never come back since. Note this, if our mind is stuck in concentration, it's impossible to see defilements, because concentration suppresses defilements from exhibiting themselves. If we think we are enlightened at any point, try thinking back to how our mind was before we started meditating. The mind of an ordinary person constantly changes. It moves, shifts, and changes all the time. Then observe if our sense of self is still there. See also whether our mind still has longings or rejections towards indulgence. These are measurements for different levels of enlightenment. If there is still a self, then we are not a stream enterer. If we still either seek or reject indulgence, be it image, sound, smell, taste, or touch, then we're definitely not a non-returner. Be observant. However, the aggregates are the tough ones. The mind and the aggregates become totally different matters altogether when the mind is fully liberated itself. Our mind at this point is still closely interrelated to the aggregates. When our meditation reaches the ultimate peak, the mind just simply functions. All the aggregates simply function as they're supposed to habitually. If we arrive at this point, then ask a teacher for assessment and guidance. For such a foundation state we're in, we can easily do it ourselves at home by observing our defilements. The key to this is to observe the mind when it's not holding concentration, because if it does, the mind is too still, hence we'll not be able to see the defilements. Let's take benefits from being at home during the pandemic to meditate, strengthening our mind and training it to be stable, separating it from phenomena by becoming the observer. See all phenomena shift and change, and observe what is happening in the present moment. Some phenomena might occur because of concentration, such as seeing a vision, or sometimes while practicing insight meditation, our concentration strength falls. When concentration is insufficient, the distractions of insights will happen. Concentration is crucial. If it's the wrong concentration, then visions may occur. If it's not enough during insight meditation, then distractions of insights will occur. This is why I've been fussy about concentration since the beginning. To have the correct concentration requires training. That allows the mind to be stable and with enough strength for our mind to neither wander off nor overfocus. It won't just happen by chance. So if we've been practicing correctly, able to see the rising and falling of phenomena, and the mind becomes concentrated inside and it feels like enlightenment, if we cannot see the teacher, we must critically observe ourselves. In fact, it's best to observe ourselves. There's no way to tell whether that teacher actually knows, or we meet a con, or they simply believe they actually know. They may take us totally off track. Since it's our own defilements, if we use our own intuition to assess and observe ourselves carefully enough, those defilements won't be able to fool us. We will eventually realize what's keeping hold of us and release ourselves from it. We're only stuck there only because we don't realize that we are. Once we know, we won't be stuck there anymore. Keep practicing, and we should be able to take care of ourselves. Don't listen to other people too much. It's best to listen to your own mind, not yielding to the defilements though. They can try to fool us using enlightenment as bait. This requires some examination by way of observing the defilements. For a stream enterer, there is no longer the delusion of self that's real. A stream enterer also no longer has skepticism in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, as well as the adherence to rites and ceremonies and the rigid and illogical upholding of these regulations or even precepts. As for a non-returner, they are liberated from indulgence and aversion. These require critical observations. So don't waste time socializing during this lockdown. Spend our time and intuition observing our mind, and we won't be fooled by the defilement with enlightenment. This will allow us to take care of ourselves. I myself also used critical reflection. I only asked for help from my teachers 7 times. There were only 7 critical issues that were really necessary for me to seek guidance. Other than that, I used critical reflection, coupled with the ability to distinguish rights and wrongs and only report them to my teachers when I went for a visit. Some teachers burst out laughing, satisfied that I wasn't fooled by the defilements. I was not gullible because I observed and used logic and reason, checking whether it was in accordance with the Buddha's teaching. There was one time that after Lumpu Dun finished teaching me, he tested me, asking whether I believed what he just taught. I answered honestly, without intention to sugarcoat or brown nose, that I haven't experienced it or seen it myself, so my mind doesn't believe this yet. I'll take this teaching with me and meditate further first. He actually chuckled and said, "Good, acceptable." All in all, I've used my critical reflections in my path of meditation. So, we can practice at home or even while on the road. Meditate while being on a bus or on the way to work. Don't feel frustrated during the commute. And when you cannot find an outlet, just lash out at the government. Well, the government can't argue back, right? So we curse them every day, but never ourselves. Some people lack self-discipline and get infected by COVID, but they blame it on the government. That's irresponsible. Do not blame others or other factors. Isn't it good we can learn about our own defilements while being at home? That's it for today. The teaching is unexpectedly long today.